Today we've been talking about gifts of love on At the Heart of Health. And Bill, we've heard about how you've served your whole life. Then your kidneys quit working, and then we find out that God's given you a chance to have that mobility once again and given you a donor. Then you're having to go down and have this. Tell me about the process of getting the kidney for both you and your donor.
Mm-hmm. In October, we were scheduled, end of October, we were scheduled to show up together at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which we did. Incidentally, the night before the surgery, we wound up in the same room. They don't usually do that, but it was coincidental. It was kind of an accident that it happened, but it gave us a chance to really talk with one another. And this whole process I see as a combination of skilled doctors and nurses and those who attended me there, together with divine providence. Mm-hmm. Because I mentioned to you that Phil only saw the announcement the day after he signed up for Facebook. Right. And the timing of that is, you might call it coincidental, but in my opinion, this was something providential. We got there and had the surgery. The surgery took about 3 hours, I believe. There was a time when the donor had as rough a time as the recipient in a kidney transplant operation. It's changed quite a bit, because when Phil went in to have his kidney removed, it was all done laparoscopically, except the actual extraction of the kidney.
So they didn't have to cut him?
They didn't have to cut him. They went in with the cameras and did all the cutting and suturing. And then when the kidney was ready to be extracted, they did a small 3.5-inch cut, took the kidney out and sutured the cut. 5 hours after the surgery, Phil was walking around the hospital. 5
hours. So with these small ports, they able to do that in 5 hours? He's walking around.
Right.
Wow.
3 days later, he was discharged from the hospital. 10 days later, he was back in Chicago, and that following Monday, he was back at work.
Wow, that has changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
That has changed a whole lot.
And I don't want to minimize at all the great sacrifice he made to give me a kidney, but thank the Lord.
It's getting easier.
It's getting easier.
And safer.
And it's not the ordeal that it once was.
Right.
We remained in the hospital for a month.
So let me stop you here. So first, he gave his kidney first, or is that what happened?
It was simultaneously.
Okay.
We were across the hall from one another. They took his kidney and prepared my body to receive it.
Okay.
I didn't understand until shortly before the surgery that they would not remove my existing kidneys. They left them there. And they go in below the appendix and create a pocket for the new kidney. And so I kid people now and tell them I have 3 kidneys.
There you go.
But the one that Phil gave me is the one that works.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to tell you that everything's working wonderfully.
Well, good.
And I've already been able to make an international trip. I was able to make that trip about 10 weeks after the surgery.
10 weeks after the surgery.
So I'm back on the job again.
You're back in it, and it looks like you're back traveling and back to being the old Bill George that you were before the kidney. So I guess Nairobi's on your travel itinerary sometimes.
I might wait a while before I go back to Nairobi.
Tell me, tell me the pain. Was it very painful to have the surgery? I mean, and I know there's.
In order to create the pocket for the new kidney, it's necessary for them to make a rather large incision. It's probably about 11 or 12 inches, the incision, and it's through tissue, muscle, and everything. So the recovery is somewhat lengthy. We had to be at the hospital for a month. Now, part of that was for the recovery, and part of it was for the testing of the anti-rejection medicines that I take.
Okay.
And they did daily blood tests to make sure that the medicines they were prescribing to keep the body from rejecting the kidney were working, and everything has worked. One of my doctors said, "Son, you had a textbook surgery, and you're having a textbook recovery."
Wow. Now,
and I say, I'm having a divinely blessed surgery and recovery.
Now, have you talked to the donor? Do you guys still keep in contact?
Oh yes, we're in regular contact. We talk to each other on the phone a couple of times a week.
Well, how does it feel inside to have something from someone else inside of you? You're sort of a combo man now.
Well, strangely enough, I've never thought about it like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess your relationship is probably closer than ever right now.
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
He is a self-giving young person.
Sounds like it.
And it's of course, as you can imagine, it has drastically changed my life.
Well, you know, there's a place for modern medicine, and of course God leads modern medicine in healing. And after we get back, we're going to talk about those that might be interested in giving, know a little bit more about the process, and talk about some of the changes that Bill's had inside. We'll be right back after this short message. I'm Dr. James Marcum, and I talk to patients every day who want to know the truth in healthcare. On our website, heartwiseministries.org, you can have your questions answered. You can read my blog where I talk about interesting and controversial subjects in medicine. You might choose to go to the radio or television sections and learn more about all sorts of health topics. Take the time and go to heartwiseministries.org. Hi, I'm Dr. James Marcum with your Daily Heartbeat. I have a saying I like to say, and it's this: it's at the heart of healing is love. Now, what would that mean, and what would that have to be with healing? But did you know that love is a way that we can change our body's chemistry? There's been studies done that show people that have animals, which could include a dog or a cat, if they have them, they actually have less heart attacks, less stroke, less infectious diseases, and even less malignancy. Well, do you think it's anything about these animals yelping and barking and meowing that changes the chemistry? No, it's not. It's the love that's shown between owner and manual. Likewise, we know that people that are happily married, if one of the spouse should suddenly die or get sick, that there's a greater likelihood of the other spouse developing a disease. So at the heart of healing is love, and love is one of the most valuable treatments we have to stay healthy. Welcome back to Heart of Health. And I think our viewers can understand that God leads in modern medicine. And modern medicine has its place, but sometimes it doesn't fix all the problems we have in this world. We have to get back to what causes these problems. And I think, Dr. George, Bill, you've sort of given us a beautiful gift of someone that gave a great gift of love to you. And it just lets us know that we're all healers in some way or another. You know, when I can make you laugh or smile or feel comfortable or show love towards you, that's a healing chemistry in and of itself. But when you can give a gift like a kidney, what a great gift. Tell me, some people out there might want to know about being a donor, whether it be a kidney or other body. How would a person get more information about that?
I think the best source of information right now is to go to the American Kidney Association, their website, or you can just do an internet search on kidney donation, and about 15 or 20 sites show up, and you can get information from a variety of different hospitals and places where kidney donation occurs.
And for those inclined, you know, that aren't medically inclined, we have two kidneys, okay?
That's right.
And you can live on one kidney very well.
Oh, yes.
And that's what you're doing right now.
The particular hospital that performed my kidney surgery has done somewhere around 7,500 kidney transplants.
And how did you pick that place? Is it, you know, just because you have some experience in Alabama, or was that recommended?
I'm an Alabaman originally, and so I have connections in the state. But I also learned that it's one of the major centers for transplant medicine in the nation.
Wow.
There's maybe one or two hospitals that do more than they do, but I've certainly wanted to go somewhere where they were experienced.
A lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have a new body part that's sort of changed your genital system. Now you're functioning well as far as kidney goes. But tell me, you know, you've worked for God your whole life. You've served Him. How has this experience changed Bill George in the way he relates to God, the way he relates to man, the way he wants to serve the rest of his life?
Mm-hmm. Well, when my friend put the announcement on Facebook that I needed a kidney, I was overwhelmed at the response. Within just a matter of weeks, I had 8 former students. Additionally, I had one of my wife's friends, a woman. So 9 different people who were saying they would give me a kidney. I was overwhelmed at that. You know, it's a lot better now than it used to be, but that's still a major
Yes.
decision. And to have people make that response, and even more than that, I had never realized the obvious impact that I'd had on those students' lives, because when they wrote saying, I want to donate a kidney, they would kind of tell me a story. And they would remind me of things I said in class or to them personally that had impacted them in a meaningful way. And I didn't have any idea of that kind of impact. So it seems to me that there's a lesson there for us, that the way we relate to other people in an encouraging and positive way can have feedback for us later on.
Yeah.
I have been encouraged since that experience to be more thoughtful and more intentional as it relates to encouraging people and speaking into their lives in a way that would be meaningful to them.
Yeah, and I guess you really understand that everything we do, we're either a healing force or a destructive force. And sometimes these healing seeds we plant, you don't see from years down the road.
That was my own experience.
Wow. Now, you've had the kidney transplant, you've had this transformation. You know, we've talked about what you're doing now. Are you going to change the things you're doing? Are you going to start traveling more? Are you going to sort of stick at home for a while? What's the plans?
No, since it's been a couple of years since I was doing the major traveling that I was required to do on the job, I have actually I invited other people to go in my place to some of those places, but there's some of them waiting for a visit. So we have a program where we certify schools. That is, we examine their operations and curriculum, make sure they operating the way they should be, and I go on visits like that. So I'm looking forward to ramping up that kind of opportunity.
Wow, thanks. Well, we're so glad you came, because, you know, you've really given us a great example of how modern medicine interacts with godly medicine, you know?
The fact that the young man who gave me the kidney was so sure that he had heard from God when he decided to do it made me feel really good. God gets involved in our lives in that way, and that's powerful.
Yeah, and when you know that, it just lets you know that the God you serve is interested in every detail and can connect and do anything He wants to do.
And if He does that for me, He does it for everybody else.
Wow. Well, thank you for being with us, Bill. We appreciate that testimony. And thank you for joining us today on At the Heart of Health. If you'd like more information about HeartWise Ministries, we can be reached on the web at heartwiseministries.org. We would love to answer your question, hear your testimony, and perhaps you might want to know more about giving an organ. We can supply that information for you. I think this has been very touching for me to hear how God interacts not only with modern medicine, but interacts with us in every detail of our lives.